Hello, I'm so glad that you're here. It's story time for Serena. Today we are going to read one of the old favorite fairy tales called Little Red Riding Hood. I'm sure most of you have heard the story before, but it's always a fun story to read. Shall we begin? Little Red Riding Hood. This edition is by Miles Kelly, with the illustrations by Monika Filipina. Look at Little Red Riding Hood here. Rosy red cheeks and a red hood. And that is the wolf licking his lips. Oh my goodness me, what is going to happen in this story? Let's have a look. Little Red Riding Hood lived in a cottage by a wood. One day her mother said, "Your grandma is ill. Please take this basket of cakes and fruit to her." Look at the basket, full of cakes and fruit. So Little Red Riding Hood set off with the basket, wearing her red cape. "Don't talk to strangers, especially not to wolves," her mother called. And off she went. Look at that, running down the path. All the beautiful flowers. There's a little butterfly. Oh, not a butterfly, a ladybird. There's all the butterflies. And a bunny. Off she goes to visit Granny. "Bye, Mum," she says. Little Red Riding Hood walked through the wood. The trees were tall and made scary shadows. Suddenly, a wolf jumped out. "Whoa! Hello!" growled the wolf. "Where are you going?" "I'm taking some cakes and fruit to my grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, look at him there, he's hiding in the wood. And as Little Red Riding Hood comes past, he jumps out. He's licking his lips. Why do you think that is? "What a sweet child you are," said the wolf. "Why not pick your grandma some flowers too?" With that, the big bad wolf ran off, leaving Little Red Riding Hood happily picking the flowers. Look at her picking a big bunch of flowers for her granny. Little did she know the wolf had raced ahead to Grandma's house. Oh, what is he up to? When he arrived, the wolf knocked softly on the door. "Let me in, Grandma," he called. "I brought you some cake and fruit." "It's me, Grandma." But Grandma wasn't silly. "That's not Little Red Riding Hood's voice," she said. Quickly she made her bed and hid in the wardrobe. Oh, this is a clever granny. Look there, she's jumping into the wardrobe. "Grandma!" The wolf burst into the cottage, but Grandma was nowhere to be seen. So he dressed himself in her nightgown and bedcap and got into bed. Look at this wolf. He's got Grandma's nightgown and Grandma's nightcap and even got Grandma's spectacles. Oh my goodness, luckily Grandma's safely hiding in the cupboard. Who do we see coming along the path over there outside? Little Red Riding Hood. "Grandma, it's me!" Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door. "Come in, dear," snarled the wolf in his nicest voice. "Grandma, you look odd," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Come and sit beside me," growled the wolf. Look at this wolf trying to pretend that he is Grandma. Little Red Riding Hood sat on the bed. "What big ears you have, Grandma," she said. "All the better to hear with, dear," replied the wolf. "What big eyes eyes you have, Grandma." "All the better to see you with, dear," said the wolf. "And your teeth are just huge," exclaimed Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to eat you with," said the wolf, and he pounced. Little Red Riding Hood screamed loudly and ran away. The wolf leapt after her, but suddenly there was a banging at the door. Bang, 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 bang. Little Red Riding Hood opened the door. There stood a woodcutter who had heard her screams. He raised his axe. With a howl of fear, the big bad wolf dashed past the woodcutter, out of the cottage, and away into the forest. There he goes running through the forest. Oh my goodness me, Little Red Riding Hood, so happy that she's been saved, hiding behind the woodcutter, and he's got his great big axe. He certainly saved her life, don't you think? Then Little Red Riding Hood and the woodcutter heard a strange knocking coming from the bedroom. They opened the wardrobe door, and out tumbled Grandma. "This is a cause for a celebration," exclaimed Grandma. So she put the kettle on and laid the table. They all sat down to tea and cakes. Yummy, look at these lovely cakes. Grandma's having tea and Little Red Riding Hood is having some juice. Never again did Little Red Riding Hood talk to strangers. As for the wolf, he kept well away from little girls, especially those wearing red capes. That is a happily ever after story, isn't it? There runs the wolf. And Little Red Riding Hood is very happy. It looks like she's going home now and she's taking some flowers to her mummy. And that is the end of this wonderful story. I always enjoy the Little Red Riding Hood story. I hope you enjoyed it too. And it's time for us to say goodbye. Bye-bye, Serena. Bye-bye, everybody else. See you soon.